And we are live. Rare, high-risk day for severe weather. And this is not for the Midwest, but primarily for the Deep South. And a high-risk day typically will be every other year. Sometimes you can get it once a year. There are times where we've had prolonged periods of 3, 4, 5 years without a high-risk day. So bottom line, again, Deep South is expected to see a tornado outbreak, a severe weather outbreak that could be epic proportions. So I want to say, share this on your Facebook page. Anyone that's a weather enthusiast obviously looks at this as a science day, but this will be a day that not only will people's lives will be affected, but you have to think about, I went to bed last night and even woke up this morning realizing that there'll be some people that went to bed last night and getting up this morning for the last time. And that's hard to really set in as a person and a human being that, hey, this could be your last day. And I don't want to get morbid or anything, but that's the kind of violent weather that the Deep South is expecting. So the Storm Prediction Center has put out a high risk. They did that. I waited till about 1 o'clock last night when they put it out. And they upgraded from a moderate to a high risk. And that is level 5 out of 5. Rarely get to that level. The last one was back in May of 2019, kind of a bust day. These high risk days that happen in the Deep South typically are not those types of days that are bust days. There's a lot of dynamics at play for folks in Alabama, Mississippi, northeastern Louisiana, and southeastern Arkansas. And you don't have to be in that high risk portion, that pink portion, to have to really look at severe weather today. In fact, if you're in that moderate threat from pretty much Little Rock, Memphis, all the way into Jackson, Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Montgomery, all the way to Mobile, this is a dangerous day. So 56 people are on. I'm going to kind of get started. Comment of where you're watching from. I'm curious to see what the demographic is looking like. We're going to take it hour by hour. We'll look at sim radar to see where convective initiation takes place, how things are going to be spinning, all that stuff. Toby, go lay down. So here's the way it looks. This was expanded from last night. Last night it was just about right here. And excuse me while I let my dog out. He's crazy. Toby has my dog, he's a Wheaten Terrier, has a fixation of feeling antsy before I go on live. He wants to go outside and then he wants to come back in. And then once I get on the live, he wants to go back outside. We had a little bit of snow in southern Minnesota and North Iowa last night, so not surprised. But back to the severe weather again. All you can say is you have to make sure folks that are living in these locations that they know what's going on. That they know this is a day that could produce very large hail, damaging winds. But in a day like today, we're concerned about supercells and these supercells turning violent, EF2 or greater type winds. And many people have been trying to compare almost 10 years next month and 4 days to the super outbreak that took place on April 27, 2011, or the super outbreak that took place on Palm Sunday in 1974. We don't know what that's. I mean, that's, and I don't say this to be funny or anything, but that's the fun, I think, of forecasting is we have no idea. We can look at, scientific data. We can put things in a computer model and try to compare what an potential outbreak, try to compare it with others. We have no idea how the atmosphere is going to play out. You may see some early initiation that may drive back slightly the severity of these storms, or we may break the cap a little bit later in the early afternoon, and these storms really have a lot of ketchup and mustard in it. So these are kind of some things that you have to slowly think about. Share this on your page. The folks that are on here, we'll start having some comments. I'll put on. I want to change my graphic here and look a little bit more specifically on what the, let's go here. Toby, go lay down. Here's what the high risk looks like. And if we take off all this jazz, you're not going to want to see all that. I mean, some really impressive stuff. So what do you look for, obviously, in the high risk is you're several hundred miles away from the Gulf Coast. Toby! Sorry. He must see something outside. Hey, knock it off. I think he sees my neighbor trying to track down the snow. So you're several hundred miles from the coast, so you still have Gulf moisture, but also you have some warm temperatures. You have a lot of really good turbulent shear. Instabilities there, lift is there as a cold front and a dry line coming through. So all these are at play, and that's why you have a high, a moderate, enhanced, slight, marginal risk, and even a thunderstorm general risk that's going all the way as far west as almost New Mexico and all the way north almost to the southern suburbs of Chicago. So an impressive storm system that we are talking about. Let's click on the high risk, and if you add everyone in here, okay, so you got 34, 40, you're almost sitting at what, 43, 44 million people within the marginal, slight, enhanced, moderate, and high. Now, if you incorporate the high and moderate, you're sitting at just about 9 million. And some major cities involved: Memphis, Montgomery, Little Rock, Jonesboro, Birmingham, Jackson, Tuscaloosa, Meridian. These are some bigger towns that are around. The primary tornado outbreak kind of situation here is, they talk about early convection, and this happens in the Midwest too. You get some early morning convection initiated likely from the warm front, and then you're going to have a cold front coming in. You're looking for what's called that triple sec, where the upper level low, the turbulent winds, the warm front, and the cold front are all together, where these thunderstorms initiate just perfectly, that there's just enough spin in the atmosphere, and that's where we look for. Obviously with the warm sector, you're looking for destabilizing the atmosphere, which leads to dew points in the 60s, high temperatures maybe in the 70s and 80s. And it's not an incredible amount of CAPE, but you're looking at least 2 to 2,500 joules per kilogram, which in the Midwest, you can get severe weather probably about 800 to 1,000. So, and then if you really get in the Great Plains, you get some of those, situations where you get capes that are 4, 5, 6,000, where there's a ton of instability. I mean, that's where you start to get really big hail. You get some really towering storms. For this, you don't need that. You don't need a ton of cape to have big time tornadoes. All right, let's go to the computer model. And I'm guessing we're going to have what we call floaters, which they try to move around based on where the worst of the weather is. So this is this morning. You got initiation right now. Oh, that's along the cold front. Most people are set up right in this area in Mississippi. And you can see why. Okay. The cold front is where you're going to get the linear line, where you're going to get that triple sect area, where you're going to get a lot of spin and a lot of deep moisture, is right there. So this is approximately 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's why most storm chasers are going to be sitting in this area. If it's me and I'm looking at a Mississippi map, we'll actually go to a Mississippi map and we'll go back to this. I am probably going to go to Meridian. Just seems like a really good spot. Oops, going the wrong way. Where the initiation is going. That way, you're right along Interstate 20, and you can go northeast pretty easily. And there may be some spots. Meridian, you can take Highway 45. If many people remember, a lot of the supercells in 2011 took place just east of Jackson, and it followed this line. Philadelphia was one that got hammered. Tuscaloosa was hammered. Northern parts of Birmingham were hammered. And then eventually this stuff all went up, went down, forgot about it, moved on. So that's, if I was a storm chaser, that's probably where I would go, as Meridian. I would have gotten a hotel, would have went there. Boom. Let's go back to the HER. Let's look at the floater one. So here's the initiation. Boom. So you're seeing, I mean, this is what? 3 o'clock. And at this point, you can probably point out supercell, 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 supercell. These are all incredibly intense thunderstorms. And when they have kind of the sector back here, there's a lot of spin. You can actually see, we call those kidney beans. And the kidney beans or screaming eagle. You can kind of see why. The head is almost like this, and it looks like a beak on an eagle, or obviously a kidney shape. So a supercell is, if we show you a classic supercell on map, kind of looks like a kidney bean, especially here. If you look at this one, you can kind of see why we would, if you visualize an eagle and an eagle's beak, and if you get it perfectly set up, something like this, not perfectly, but I mean, some of these are about as perfect as they can get. Like something like this, that's a EF5 supercell in Moore, Oklahoma, when we had some of the strongest winds ever. So you're getting some of the inflow notch, you're getting the rear flank downdraft, but also you're getting the actual debris ball, which is showing up on radar. And right in this area, in between Bridge Creek and Newcastle, you're getting debris and dirt locked up in radar upstairs in the atmosphere. And that's why when you sometimes hear about the debris ball, so you can actually see the tornado in this one, and the hook and the very large hail is actually being sucked in here, thrown aloft, and then the winds will start to wrap around, and then it'll start to throw it back down. But the most important piece of this is the actual balance within the supercell. So you're getting inflow notches in here that will be more of the warm, moist air in the southeastern part of the storm. Northwestern, you're going to get the cooler air that's going to be thrown back down to the surface. So that's kind of the healthy balance that you're looking for some of these supercells. So let's go back. I just kind of wanted to explain that. Let's go back to the floater one. So these storms really are nasty, but some good news, if there's any. Well, it doesn't look like there's a ton of good news, but here's the cold front. So you're talking about 10 o'clock at night. You may get some embedded tornadoes within here, but the most violent storms that you're going to see on the planet are going to be supercells that produce strong tornadoes. I'm not going to say that there's going to be an EF5 today, but today would be a day conducive where the ingredients would be there for violent tornadoes between EF2 and EF5. Would I be surprised if we had an EF5 tornado? No. Would I be surprised if we didn't? Not necessarily. Would it be a kind of a bust day? I think in retrospect, with how things are set up with a high risk and how our brain automatically goes to the extreme, a lot of people would probably call it a bust. And it's not going to be a bust, because all it takes is, James Spann said this from ABC 3340 in Birmingham, really well-known meteorologist. All it takes is a tornado today to hit your home, your avenue, your city, and it's your April 27th, 2011. And these are the storms that are going to produce violent winds in excess of 200 miles an hour. The other thing to keep in mind is tomorrow. Tomorrow already has a moderate risk. Same kind of setup that happened back in 2011 and 2014 as well. You had a high risk over here in Mississippi, in parts of Tennessee and Alabama. And then you had a moderate and high risk eventually going right along the Gulf Coast or the Atlantic coast here, mid-Atlantic. And I mean, you look at the moderate right now for tomorrow, and there's even more moderate enhanced. You got 22 million people involved in that. I mean, some major metropolitan areas, including Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, Savannah, Atlanta, Winston-Salem, and then even some slight risks and even marginal for more major metropolises, including Jacksonville, even going up to Columbus, Ohio. This is Tampa. So lots to think about. All right, I'm going to look at some of these comments. Thank you for sharing, Mackenzie. Appreciate that. Mary from Isle, Minnesota. Got Luke watching from St. Paul, Minnesota. Osage. Brandon, it's going to be crazy there. The model runs are getting worse each run, similar to 2011. The Carolinas aren't looking good for tomorrow either. I would agree. And what we're seeing from our high-res models hour by hour, the supercell initiation, that could be taking place in the next hour, hour and a half already. So there'll probably be, cut-ins, break-ins down there that I'll be following. Rose and Thornton, appreciate it. Girl Cindy, good morning. Cedar Rapids. Linda from Osage. Jenna from Wausau. Brandon wants to know who's in my Final Four. It's funny, Brandon. I've been so busy with work and honestly almost desensitizing myself from a lot of the sports that are going on here just because things have turned so political that I've kind of gotten away from it. But I will put out, Brandon, I'll tell you what, I will put out a Final Four. Is today Thursday? No, today's Wednesday. I'll put out a Final Four later if I have some time. No doubt. All right, folks, I am done. We're going to put my banner back on. If anyone has any questions, let me know. Send comments. I'll be all over this. I know I'll be working today. I have a shoot and I have a couple of client meetings, but I will definitely be watching this. And it's going to be one of those days that hopefully we're not looking back on as the next April 27, 2011. And I know a few of you have already done this. Please reach out to loved ones, friends, acquaintances, anyone that lives in the Dixie states to make sure that I'm sure they're aware, but to be aware that they have a couple of ways of getting weather information beyond their cell phones. If it's a weather radio, if it's making sure that they're watching their local meteorologist, but also making sure that they have somewhere safe to go. Deep South, I know they don't have a ton of basements, but these are tornadoes that if you are not underground, they can kill you. Something to think about. All right, folks, take care. God bless.